and welcome to Found in Translation, a weekly-ish episode of One Fellow's translation of the Christian scriptures, one chapter at a time. I'm Brandon Rhodes, and across the internet from me is the translator himself, Brandon Johnson. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Good to see you this morning. Our guest co-host today is Brian Murphy. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brandons. It's good to be here with y'all.
It's great to have you.
It's wonderful to have you, yeah.
So everybody, Brian Murphy is with he, him pronouns. You may know Brian as the co-host of the Queer Theology Podcast, which is a delightful and diversely topicked show. Go through their catalog. It's amazing. Also the co-founder of queertheology.com. He's been doing LGBTQ activism and education for over a decade with organizations ranging from Soul Force to the Human Rights Commission. Brian's also the co-creator of Legalize Trans, an artistic and educational movement to advance gender justice. And he's a certified relationship coach with the specialty of helping folks navigate the issues that come with open relationships and polyamory. Oh my God, there's so many interesting things. Dog ear all
So
things.
many.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show. Brian, before we dive into Matthew 26, two questions to start. What are you scheming on these days? Like, what's got your mind and your heart abuzz?
Well, this is going to sound like canned, but I just, 2 weeks ago, Shannon and I, my creative partner over at queertheology.com, turned in our manuscript for a book that we're writing that will come out next spring. So it's all about queerness in the Bible. So I've been scheming on that a lot and just like thinking about all the ways in which queerness, the Bible is already queer and like is already good news for queerness and how queerness nurtures that. But I have been trying to sort of like set that down for a little bit in my brain until I have to pick it back up again with copy edits and things like that. I'm just really enjoying right now when we're recording, it's springtime. So I'm scheming on how I can spend more time outside. I just got off of an appointment with a psychiatrist, so I'm scheming on how to make my brain a little bit run more smoothly.
Yes.
And just like thinking about, I recently moved back to New York City after a few years away and reconnecting with friends and acquaintances. And so I'm just like thinking about the power of community and chosen family and not just sort of like your best friends, but also like your casual friends and their acquaintances and like the best friends of your best friends that like aren't your best friends and this sort of like wide sprawling network of folks that we have here and like how like I just think it's like really beautiful and sacred and holy and I just like feel so lucky to be part of it and so just really like trying to like revel in friendship.
That's a pretty good thing to revel in.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Second question for you. What's your relationship with the Bible been like? You've been nerding out extra hard about it lately.
Yeah, I grew up attending a evangelical Presbyterian church, and so I got from that very much like the Bible is like almost like a history book, right? It's like an instruction manual for life, and the 10 Commandments with a quick start guide. Everything happened. I remember like in middle school, there was some news article or something, and we were all sort of geeking out about maybe Noah's Ark had been found on some hilltop in Turkey. But like the Muslims,
I remember those photos.
Yeah, but like the Muslim government won't let them.
Pretty sure that's an ice glacier, but yeah.
And also like the Muslims, like Islam, also has the Noah's Ark story, so like they absolutely wouldn't be like keeping out the truth. But it's just like also like messy.
Right.
I think I was also taught at some point that like men have one less rib than women because of Genesis, like all of that rigmarole.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then I was considering going to a Christian college, and I had this thought that like I think I'm gonna want to kiss a boy in the next few years, and maybe like a conservative Christian college like in a small rural town is like not the place to be. So
not the easiest setting for that.
Yeah, so I didn't do it. So I studied film production at the University of Southern California. I went to Los Angeles, and I added on a religion minor to sort of like work out all of my closeted gay angst. And of course, like my church friends were like, "You shouldn't study religion at a secular school; they're going to corrupt you."
Right.
And my first religion professor, who was a rabbi, on his way to some other point, like made a passing reference to like how the Exodus didn't historically happen, and my hand shot up, and I was like, "What do you mean? Are you saying the Bible isn't true?" And he was like, "Well, no, like there's like different types of truth. Like we got like what does truth mean?" And there's like the historical truth of like what did or did not happen in the desert. Like there's like not really any archaeological evidence or record keeping to suggest that like there were lots of slaves that they left like in Egypt, like that probably didn't happen. But then there's sort of like a more foundational truth of like this community and where they came from, and like maybe there's a smaller amount of people who left. Maybe they were in Egyptian occupied lands, like in Canaan somewhere. Maybe like they were in exile 1,000 years later, writing about like using this as a metaphor. But like the Israelite people and then subsequently the Jewish people have experienced like occupation, slavery, bondage, exile, liberation, like actually like on a very cyclical sort of way. And so this is like a foundational truth. And so like like this is also in some like meaningful way true that like God did bring these people out of slavery. And so like what is truth? And I was like, oh.
I can see that being quite a thing.
Yeah. And so I think that for a while I was like, the Bible's not real and I'm gonna not be anything. I'm just sort of gonna be like an agnostic or an atheist. And then I came back around to it as sort of like metaphor. And then I came around to sort of like sacred stories and myths as sort of like being inherently wrapped up in history and propaganda, like in the past. And so sort of like the idea that you can separate like quote unquote, like what really happened from the metaphor of it or the meaning of it or the agenda of it is just like a very modern, like they didn't have news cameras back then. So like what it meant was always wrapped up with like what happened as like this thing that happened in the past. And then especially like over the past few years, I've been like, that's not something we stopped doing 500 years ago. Like that's absolutely how we talk about what happened or what is happening is wrapped up with what it means and with a like religio-political agenda. Like turn on Fox News versus CNN versus like MSNBC and like they will be telling the same something happened and they're all reporting on it in wildly different ways. And like what is the truth? And that's like an extreme example, but even just for like looking at statistics, like even if like something more benign, like even if you agree that like if this thing happened, like the angle or the posture of what it means, like were they deported or were they disappeared or were they abducted? Were they like murdered? Was it self-defense? Like, was it like, there's all of these different, it's all still happening. And so now I'm like, oh man, like, fuck, like we're all always doing this. You like actually can't escape it. And so I think like engaging in the stories that formed us and these ancient stories and also the stories that we tell about ourselves and our in the present tense is also super important. And so now I'm just like really jazzed about the stories we tell ourselves.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's a long answer to a short question.
It's a long journey we all have with this complicated book. Yeah. So we're going to be talking this week about Matthew chapter 26. This season we're doing it with a particular focus on reading it from a context of authoritarianism in the United States these days as a text that we think has a bias against authoritarianism and written under this imperial occupation. So it's a really complicated text that we're listening for that resonance of how the work of the divine breaks down dumb kinds of power, for lack of a better phrase. So everybody watching or listening, if you haven't had a chance to read Brandon's translation, for those watching, we're going to have it up on the screen here in a minute. If you're listening, hit pause, swipe over to the episode notes. There's a link there so you can read it online. So lots of important nerdery in the footnotes as well. This is a very long chapter, which holy shitballs means there is a lot of footnotes. So take your time. We'll be here when you're ready. Okay, everybody, welcome back. So Matthew 26, this is coming right after Jesus has had some long and passionate and coded words for Jerusalem and the path that his wider sacred family is on in terms of how they're going up against their occupiers. And he's got a lot of concerns. So the story culminates, or this chapter like pivots off of that. It's a long chapter. We are going to do quite a few readings today. So I'd say let's just start this up. Brandon, can you read? Looks like you want to do the first 16 verses.
When Jesus had finished with all these sayings, he told his students, "You know that in 2 days, Passover is happening, but the Son of Humanity is also being handed over to be crucified." Then the lead priests and the elders of the people met together in the courtyard of the high priest named Caiaphas, and they conspired to arrest Jesus by deception and kill him. However, not during the festival, they said, so there won't be outrage among the people. When Jesus was in Bethany at Simeon's house, the one who had leprosy, a woman went up to him holding an alabaster jar of very expensive perfumed oil, and she poured it over his head while he was reclining at the table. When the students saw it, they were indignant and spoke out, "Why this waste? This could have been sold for a high price and be given to people in poverty." Aware of this, Jesus challenged them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She did something beautiful for me. You see, you will always have people in poverty with you, but you won't always have me. When she poured this oil on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Honestly, I'm telling you, wherever the triumphant message is announced throughout the whole world, what she did will also be told in memory of her." Then, one of the 12, the one called Judah, man of Kerioth, went over to the lead priests and said, "What will you give me to hand him over to you?" So they set out 30 silver coins for him. From then on, he began looking for an opportunity to hand him over. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Wow, the thunderstorm clouds have rolled in already thematically in this story.
Yeah.
I appreciate that it's beginning with Jesus citing or kind of narratively coding what he's up to with Daniel 7, with these old stories of how somehow Israel or Israel's representative is going to be killed by these occupiers, but that God will vindicate this person or this people through it and then be given a kingdom. And, there's all these kind of subsequent lovely images, but the guy is going to die. The monsters are going to die harder. And this person will be, in some sense, vindicated. And that's sort of what he's saying is like, I'm that guy in the story. Who might the monsters be? Right?
Uh-huh.
And that's going to show up in verse, 64, I think, where, like, once he's been arrested, they're listening for that one thing that he said and bringing it back up to say, you said this bad thing, like that, that we're the bad guys. Fuck you. It's almost like the slightest thing critical of the modern nation of Israel is getting some people who are here legally in America and our students arrested and disappeared for that. You say one cross thing against power, and there are times when it convulses to grab people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a means to an end, really, even if that's not the actual heart of why people are doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it feels also like in the context of authoritarianism and fascism, to sort of like pay attention to who the power is, right? And I actually think that this, like, that example of the modern state of Israel and criticism of it is a perfect example. Like, obviously, the modern state of Israel has like an agenda and some amount of power, like not insignificant amount of like nuclear power, like, and also in America, it's like the federal government and the American government that has the power, right? And so, like, and I think that it's like not an accident, right, that our current administration is using this particular issue. Jews, like by like a wide margin, are like liberal and support Democrats. And so like to be like, oh, it's the Jews' fault that we're arresting all of these people, like in the name of like anti-Semitism and Israel. And like, I think like I know a lot of Jewish people who are like, absolutely don't do this in our name, but like there are, and like it's like not also like not untrue that there are a lot of like people who aren't as tapped in that are like, oh yeah, like the Jews are this like all-powerful force Israel is making America do this, right? Like, it's actually the Jews are the problem, as opposed to a very strategic use of this particular issue to like try to drive a cudgel between the resistance. And I think we also, like, there's an echo of this that we'll probably get to more later, but like, who actually has the power in first century occupied Judea? It's like not actually the Jews who are executing people, it's the Romans.
Right.
And so I think like I don't think we've quite gotten to that part of the story, but like I think it's also like to pay attention to like who actually has the power here and who's appealing to power that doesn't actually have, or how is power being wielded as a distraction for other actions and agendas is like super, super important.
Yeah. And I think you're pointing out like who actually has the power here, and it's Rome, not really the Jewish leadership here. Like,
yeah, and it's not Jews who are like 5% of like it's you know, it's like it's conservative Christians and like white people that have the power here, right? Like, and it's just really important to pay attention to that.
Yeah, and all of that's really important for like connecting kind of this legacy of like anti-Semitism and reading like, oh, the Jews killed Jesus. Like, did they though?
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's in the fourth gospel where Jesus says to, is it Pilate, like, you have no power except for the power that's given to you from above, which is like kind of heard. I grew up hearing that as like God gave you this authority, as putting the ruling authorities in power. I think he's saying, dude, you're Caesar's bitch. And I, you know,
absolutely.
And I, you know, that kind of goes all the way down. Like, Caiaphas, you think you're this powerful bro, but like, the guys who can do this are actually the people who are oppressing all of your people. Like, you're still in the ladder. You're still down on the ladder that you think you're playing the ladder game. You're playing the pyramid game here. So Jesus isn't pulling rank when he says that. He's like just acknowledging the rank.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
play that game and lose.
This passage like reminds me of like your first question, Jen, about sort of, or early question about like our relationship to the Bible. And I think that I grew up in a framework of all of these things about Jesus happened because the stories in the Tanakh like foretold it, and this is like they were future predictions, and now this is all magically coming to pass because, and this is like God ordained, as opposed to either or a combination of the people who are like Jesus choosing to make his entry into Jerusalem at Passover because it is traditionally a time of unrest, civil unrest, rebellions against Rome. They were not the only ones to like go against Rome. The last week by Borg and Crossan is like so good in terms of sort of like setting the stage for all of this, right? That like he's not the first revolutionary, right? And so like there's possibly some strategy here, right? Like in the same way that the Montgomery like bus boycott was like, it didn't happen like off the cuff. They planned who it was going to be and when it was going to be and where it was going to be, right? And so like perhaps Jesus specifically chose Passover to like make his entry on purpose. And also, as Christian communities are telling these stories, like making these connections to be like, see, like as we're moving away, the temple has now been destroyed by the time Matthew is written, right? Like there is no more temple sacrifice. Jesus is the new temple. Jesus is the new sacrifice, drawing these connections, the anointing, right? Like anointed almost as like a king, like all the ways in which especially the Gospels are very heavy on referencing that community's sacred scripture to sort of like bolster their claims. That doesn't mean it had to happen that way, or that like Jonah like was actually about Jesus, right? But that like we can see resonances of that because like these are like deep stories. Karen Armstrong has this quote that sort of like sacred myths are about things that in one form happened in the past and in another form continue to happen all of the time, right? Like of course we're going to see these stories of occupation, liberation, oppression, like these are timeless tales. And so like to look back at it and be like, I see myself in this story is what the Christian writers were doing with the Jewish scriptures. And I think also like what we as modern readers can do to say, like, look back and be like, oh, we have some examples of how communities have dealt with this before. Who are we in these stories? And sometimes we're the small guys, and sometimes we're Rome, or sometimes we're Judas.
Yeah. Find yourself in all the different parts of the story.
Yeah.
The way in which this passion story unfolds and is told this year, both given the context that we are in historically and just my own kind of slowly reflecting on all of it, so we're recording this right now a couple weeks after Easter, and so
also after Passover.
And Passover, right?
Double one there. So on Good Friday, went down the street to a church that had set up really just a passive art Stations of the Cross kind of art walk, and they had art from all the same artists, and they had just Bible quote excerpts of what's happening as it tells the story. And I felt so vividly, this is the story of a lynched man. This is a story of a man who's doing the work to advocate for the marginalized in his community. And he's accepted that there's going to be this inevitable clash. And so going through this sham trial and the way scapegoating happens, the way these slurs happen, the selective citations to frame him as a traitor and froth up the crowd, and just his presence before these accusers throughout the whole process. It's remarkable if you're following these jackboot hijinks that are happening in our time and that have been happening, to be clear. I'm saying this as a white person who has not had much direct experience of it.
Yeah.
Outside of running away from a protest when it gets weird. But, our Black and Indigenous and other neighbors of color that have experienced plenty of this in America for a long time, to see how that story is their story and that story of resistance and this whole myriad of a farce of justice.
Yeah.
Feeling that happen in each of these moments it's making me moved by the Holy Week and Passion stories in a way that I haven't felt in a long time, because I haven't known quite what to do with the whole, I've had to let go of the redemptive violence part of it. But now feeling that this is a story that happens present tense has been, whoo.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anyone is listening is like a reader, like you got to read James Cone, A Black Theology of Liberation. It's his seminal work. And then The Cross and the Lynching Tree really makes this, drives this point home, which is a little bit more modern, but it's just they're so tied up together, especially for those of us who live in America. And we're getting back to our earlier point, because we really got to identify for me as a queer person, I often feel like I'm the one in need of saving, right? And oh my God, they're the bad guys. And as a white man in America, I benefit from white supremacy, and so how to learn about that and sit with that and actively work against it, and they can it's all true, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump down to I see in the notes you've just got one verse you want to talk about. Let's talk about verse 25.
All right, so here's verse 25. This is after Jesus saying, "I'm going to be betrayed," kind of thing, and all that, and each of them were like, "No, not me, right?" And then Judas, who was turning him in, said, "Certainly not I, Rabbi. If you say so," Jesus answered.
God, this hits home.
Yeah. Yeah, how so?
I mean, I just feel like we all want to think, of course it wouldn't be me, right? Of course I would stand up for what's right. Of course I would never betray my friends. Of course I would never abandon the movement. Of course I would help trans people get hormones. Of course I would hide the Jews. Like, of course I would have, like, I would have helped out if there was an attempted lynching happening. Like, and we can see, like, I don't know, like, I remember just like, I don't know, 30 years ago, right? When like the Holocaust seemed both more present and more distant, everyone was like, how could those Germans just sit by, right? And just let it happen, right? And now I'm like, I don't know, the same way we're all fucking doing it.
Right.
And I like include myself in, like, I mean, I do a lot of stuff, and I organize both like through the political system, outside the political system, like, and also like I gotta work. Like, I'm going to like get Mexican restaurant tonight, like, and people are like in
You're
like
living
fucking
your life.
cages, right? Like, and like, what do you do with that? And it gets even more like, Jesus is going to be executed. It's entirely possible that all of his followers are also going to be executed. I think it's a very human reaction to be like, oop, I was with this in theory. I actually don't want to die. Like, dip out, right? Years ago, I was involved in nonviolent direct action organizing at Christian colleges that discriminate against LGBTQ people as part of this whole equality ride, to sort of like draw attention to those policies and start conversations around them and try and shift things. So I received extensive nonviolence training from Phil Lawson, who was one of like a civil rights era leader, and like other leaders. Like, went toe to toe with the police for 2 months. Like, it was intense, right? Like, and I was back in town. And a year later, I was going. One of my friends had done it the following year. I was going back to like a coming home party for her in Brooklyn, and there was police like harassing some guy, and I like pulled out I was just pre-iPhones because I'm old, so I was like using my Palm Trio to record it. And like, they like got in my face and like put me against a pole and like threatened to arrest me. And I was like, I know from my nonviolence training, it's like not good to get arrested by yourself, right? Like, I'm below ground. There's no cell phone reception. It's like 6 p.m. on a Friday. I'm alone. Like, I could be in jail all weekend. And they pressured me into deleting it. And I deleted it. And like, I think about that. Was that the right move? Like, what happened? What happened to this guy? I mean, like, this, like, how I comfort myself is that they gave me a citation. And so I got in contact with the NYCLU, and there was this like landmark ruling against the Transit Education Bureau in general. So some good came out of it anyways. But like, I was like, I don't know. I was like scared about spending a weekend in jail. And so I was like, I guess I'll delete that. Right. Like, and so like, it takes a lot of work and preparation. And like, if you're not practicing disobeying the rules and putting yourself in danger on a regular basis, like, you absolutely will not hide your Jewish neighbors, or you absolutely won't shelter the person who is an American citizen, but like people think it's undocumented, or who is actually undocumented, or like, you absolutely like won't put your neck on the line for the trans person who is just getting hormones, but like, they've rewritten the laws such that now that person is a sex offender, because like, you don't want to be harboring a sex offender. Like, so like, it really just feels like there, but by the grace of God go I. Like, I absolutely could be Judas. And so like, it is an active practice, and you got to practice. The best time to start practicing was 20 years ago. The next best time to start practicing is today, of like how I can be ready so that I don't become Judas.
I feel that. This last,
thanks for that.
This last weekend, there was a queer youth group kind of thing having 2 nights in a row, like a pink party for middle school queer kids, and queer pink prom the next night. And I had not done intervention training yet. I had not. It's been a while since I've been out on these things. And the nervousness and anxiety of getting to that place where, and what I had to keep telling myself was this mantra that my friend Lori, it's her mantra: who do I choose to be? Because this story is our story too. Like, the moment when it arrives, are we going to thump our chest and say, I won't abandon you? Or, I mean, yeah, when you're in the capital city and occupied by all these Romans with all their swords and all those crosses on the edge, on the side of the road that you pass coming into town, doing the brave thing is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And even like nobody actually showed up. Like there were 20 of us protecting this space. We knew that there were some threats online. None of the knuckleheads showed up. There was one truck that drove by twice, eyeing down the trans woman on the corner, and the second time doing a finger pistol at them. And I can't believe how much fear that activated in me.
Yeah.
Like the work it takes to together soak our nervous systems in compassion and courage, to be the kind of people that our times call for is really hard. So I appreciate you're giving me a little bit of compassion for, these disciples who are like,
yeah. I mean, like, I don't know, like J.K. Rowling is a raging transphobe who takes all of the money she makes from her books and her movies and her theme parks, and she funnels it directly into causes that strip trans people and frankly like LGBT people at large from the rights. And like some of y'all like won't even give up Harry Potter. Like you're gonna give up your life, you won't even give up a book. Like miss me with it, right? So like I think like, and it starts with like, yeah, I don't know, I really liked Harry Potter also. Like they practice giving up Harry Potter so you can like then practice giving up like the next harder thing, so you can like practice giving up the next harder thing, because
it's
like
a spiritual
you gotta start
discipline,
somewhere.
giving up
Yeah,
Harry Potter.
Yes, it really is. Like, and I don't mean to belittle it. Like it might have been really formative for you. It might have been really meaningful for you. You have a lot of good memories associated with it. Like, I get it. Like, and also your support of that IP, like, is directly funding violence. And so, like, you have to practice. And so if that's where you're at, start there, But, like,
can I just say it irks me that the evangelicals of my youth were right that Harry Potter is demonic.
I know.
Just for all the opposite reasons that they thought.
I know. I was like, oh, you were right. We shouldn't be reading this.
Or at least she actually needs to reread it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also like racist and like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, there's
kind of messy to begin with. We just missed it.
The more you look for it, the more you see it. Yeah.
Let's keep going here. The next few verses are worth exploring.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this has a payload here. Yeah.
This is some of the most important stuff to me in the whole book. While they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and after he spoke praise, he broke it. After giving it to the students, he said, "Here, eat this. This is my body." Then, after he took the cup and gave thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Everyone drink from it, because this is my covenant blood, which is poured out for many for liberation from deviations. But I'm telling you, I won't drink of the fruit of the vine at all from now until that day when I can drink it new with you in my Father's reign." Then, after they sang praise, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
All right. Geek it for us, man.
Yeah. This is, I see this as tying together like the theme of the whole book. So we talked in other episodes about the chiastic structure that I see in Matthew, pivoting at like chapter 15, which is sandwiched right between the feeding of the 5,000 and the feeding of the 4,000. And what's interesting to me here is that the specific wording, it doesn't say in the Greek, it's not gave thanks both times. It's two different words, spoke praise, or more traditionally, like blessed it, and then give thanks. And in the feeding of the 5,000, it uses that he broke the bread and spoke praise. In the feeding of the 4,000, he broke the bread and gave thanks. I think it's referencing that here, which the feeding of the 5,000 was with a Jewish population. The feeding of the 4,000 was with a Gentile population. And I think it's that whole, like, this is far more expansive than we've been anticipating here, which is then where it talks about, which is poured out for many, which I've written an article that was prompted by Josiah Hawthorne's insights that Romans and I think Matthew kind of uses many and all interchangeably. The definitions of the words aren't literally the same, but I think they get used rhetorically the same way. Mm-hmm. Romans 5 is a really good example for showing that really clearly. And so that the point is that, like, yeah, this is not just for the people who are in the in-group. This is for everybody.
And that ties into what's in between those two stories in Matthew, 15?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like the chiastic structure is like, okay, what's right in the center?
Right. Yep. It's Jesus doing some teaching about including everybody, basically, and then living it out in the story with the Canaanite woman, which has historically been really problematic, but we talked about in that episode exactly why I think it's actually the theme story that pivots and brings the whole book into focus of including everybody. So.
Yeah. And when you told me that theory when you first found it, I was like, that's interesting and trippy. I'm going to think on that. And then as we've been going through Matthew, it's like, oh shit, I think like that story is a pretty good linchpin for the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. As we talked about before, and as I said, there's a specific phrase that every other major translation translates in a way that cannot be justified by the Greek grammar. That shifts. It's in her response that's like, but they still eat the crumbs or whatever, and it's not a but, it's a that's because, which is implying then like this sense of, yeah, like it's okay to share with other people because it doesn't actually take away from the first group to do that. It just gets bigger.
Mm-hmm. And so how lovely to see that showing up as in this other important moments in the story with the first communion, as it were.
Right. Yeah.
How does this moment in the story, I'm curious for both of you, like the Eucharist, how does that feel within this wider context of domination, fascism, and all that? It's so soaked with religious meaning from earlier times in life. I'm curious what you feel beyond that.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts.
Do it.
Cool.
I need to look up something. But I think that like my first thought is like a nerdy thought on like how this got here, right? And that I think for all of us reading the Bible now, right, like we have all of it to read all together. And so like we sort of come at all of it with and now that we're grown-ups, like we've all read it all or a lot of it, right? And so like we're sort of holding it all together at once. And then as like in the redaction of it, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John come first, right? And so like if you are reading it in order, you read these narrative stories first. And also like we know like from historical research that these came later after the Pauline letters, right? And so before there was this whole narrative around the betrayal and the Last Supper and the crucifixion, the resurrection, we had these sort of like teachings from Paul and these like memes. And so the Lord's Supper, the First Communion, the Eucharist, is like one of the like earliest Christian sort of like memes. And like I would imagine communities had different stories orally around where they came from or how it got started. But like what was written down was like this sort of sacred symbological act that then they sort of like kept doing over and over and over again for decades, and then eventually it got sort of like expanded in this story. And so I'm thinking about like, it's just like, it feels important to sort of like, not that because it's in Paul's letters, it's like more real, it's like closer to Jesus, so it's like more authentic, but like these are some through lines. And so like this thing has like dates like really far back, and seems to have like some really important significance. So like what's going on there, as a, like on an emotional level, like I don't know, like there's like when I was a Christian, there was like something really cool about the Eucharist. Is like one of my favorite rituals, probably up there with Ash Wednesday. I love sad things and death. Like, and I'm also struck that there's like a lot of Jewish resonances here, right? Like you were talking about the sort of referencing the Jesus feeding stories, like which are in turn referencing the Elisha feeding stories from the Tanakh, right? To sort of say like, well, Elisha fed like 100 or 500, I forget what it was, like with 20 loaves. Like Jesus can do even more people with even less. Like he's even better. Like isn't that like so cool? Like
cool magic trick.
Like, which makes sense, right? Like, but it's he's like the new Elisha, or the expanded Elisha, right? Like, and then
Elisha
also
2.0.
like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then with this, like, right, like Jews also drink wine and eat bread, like liturgically, like certainly every Shabbat, if not more frequently. There's like blessings we say over like Kiddush for wine and Motzi for bread, and so like, it's just sort of like interesting to see like that is also like a part of. There's some like very like distinctly Jewishness stuff happening here in this moment that it's like easy to sort of gloss over or not realize or imagine that Jesus sort of like invented it himself, but he's like absolutely drawing upon his like specific Jewish context in this sort of like ritualistic act.
This is their Passover meal, right?
Yeah. Which it also feels important to say is like different than the modern Passover Seder, right? Because the time of Jesus, the temple still like existed, so they would have gone like slaughtered a lamb at the temple and then like brought it home and eaten it, right? So like that's not, when we're talking about the Passover Seder, that's like not what they were doing. It's a bit different, but yeah, it's in the context of this like story of bondage and liberation.
Yeah. And that's the liturgical meaning that Jesus is giving to this kind of pageantry moment.
Yeah.
Coming into Jerusalem.
And I also think that like, so as people who read the Hebrew, the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible, right, we sort of you can see an evolution in everyone, like the various authors' understandings of God. Like in Genesis, the Garden of Eden is like very different than in some of like the writings, like Kings, First and Second Kings, like certain Judges. Like as we get into like the prophets, it's an even more different understanding of God. And then by the time of Jesus, like we also get into another like iteration of God. And so for Christians, I think it's like easy to imagine that like it's easy for Christians to sort of like see the evolution of like Israelite religion into Christianity, and then just sort of like imagine that modern Judaism is just sort of like stuck back in the past, right? Whereas the Jewish people themselves, like over the development of the Tanakh, like the Jewish canon, like they're constantly evolving, and their understanding of God and ritual practice and justice and inclusion that you can see in some places in the Tanakh, like very sort of like anti-outsider sentiments, and then you also see some very like beautiful outsider inclusive sentiments, like right, and they're arguing with each other in the same way that Jesus and the Jesus movement is arguing rhetorically with the Jewish scriptures. Like the Jewish scriptures also argue with themselves, and then the temple got destroyed and the Jesus movement sort of became its own thing, and the Pharisaic Judaism like turned into rabbinic Judaism, and like that also like continues to evolve. And so like it also feels like I would imagine like Jesus was like not the only Jew in first century Judea imagining like, what does my Jewish identity mean for freedom and liberation and my people and other people's like right to be a call that the Jewish people should be a light to the world is like baked into the Jewish scriptures. And then certainly post destruction of the Second Temple and the splinter of Christianity off, like the Jews also have a wide circle drawn too. And so it just feels like important that like Jesus is doing something like distinct here in imagining like what it means to be like what his mission is, like, and also to sort of, as folks who were sort of like embedded with like supersessionism, like Jesus fixed it, Jesus got it right, Jesus is the continuation of the movement, it's more expansive, right? It's expansive in different ways, feels important to like underline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think pretty much everything Jesus is recorded of Jesus teaching in the Gospels is in other Jewish literature of the time, right? Like Rabbi Hillel, and like I've heard it said, I haven't like looked into all the Jewish literature to find out for myself, but that the only thing that Jesus said that's actually unique is the love your enemies. But I could be wrong on that too.
Yeah, I think I've heard that. Like it's, I mean, but I think like one of the ways that sort of, not to get in the weeds with Judaism, right, is sort of like what does it mean to sort of be like, who is your neighbor and who is your family? Like that there's like passage in, I think it's actually Matthew, and maybe a few other places where Jesus' family comes to visit him, right, and the disciples are like, oh, your family's here, and he's like, who is my mother, who is my father, who are my brothers? Like, you are the people who are gathered here are, which like to an untrained reader might seem sort of like a diss at his family, right? Like, oh, like they're not my real family, you all are. And also, who is my mother, who is my family is actually like a very critical question, because for Jews who understand themselves to be like beholden to the mitzvot, like you have specific obligations that are like legally required by your community and how you understand your relationship with God to a parent or a brother that is like different than a child, is different than a stranger. And so like actually this question of who it is matters a great deal. And also like it's a very Jewish thing to be like, well, maybe like we got it wrong, and like maybe this word actually means that, and it's actually bigger. And so yes, I don't think there's anywhere in this knock that says like love your enemy, and I think that is like particularly Jesus-y type thing. I think lots of Jews would be like, yeah, we don't have to love our enemies, but also I think like lots of Jews would also be like, well, we are commanded to love and care for our neighbors, and we're also commanded to love and care for the stranger in our midst. And so like, and we are also commanded to love and care for our family. So like that sort of encompasses everyone. And like my enemies are going to fall in one of those camps. True. And so like, actually I am still beholden to them.
Love it. Yeah.
And so like a lot of the way, like it seems, I think like people are like, oh, Judaism is like so legalistic. But like one of the ways that it's like legalistic is sort of like playing with the words to sort of like get at like the deeper values.
It's like improv with the hard rule of what's on the stage is what we're going to play with. But we could tell any fucking story with these toys on the stage here.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens.
And we do that with the Constitution also, right? Where it's like we say that we have to fit it into like these 20, however many like amendments there are. And so like, oh, and I think like some of it is a logical extension of that. And sometimes it's like, they definitely, when they wrote that, did not mean that. And also like, who the fuck cares, right? Like we know better now. Like
textualism is weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they had slaves and like, and they like used leeches and like they didn't know. Like we know better now.
Right.
So let's keep this story flowing here. So Jesus has his meal. They've all had their wine. They go up the hill, hang out in the garden. They all fall asleep except Jesus. Well, Judah sneaks away. Jesus is having an emotional moment. So I can imagine the stress of this moment where he's gone down this path. There's this important moment earlier in every gospel where Jesus turns to Jerusalem and kind of realizes where this is heading. And here it is. He's been kind of clearing the way for them to kind of falsely accuse him and arrest him and execute him. And yeah, that stress, no matter how many nonviolent trainings you've gone to, you feel or nonviolent actions you've done, your nervous system is still a little panicky.
Yep. Yep. And he's been poking the bear for sure. No, he knows this is coming. Like, it's the big pivot of like the Olivet discourse is like, I am clearly critiquing the powers here. It was kind of in code before that, but now it's explicit out in the open. I know what that leads to. He knows what's coming.
Yeah, I think that there is like
stress involved in that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's easy to see sort of like two quote unquote like versions of religiosity, right? Where there's sort of like, it's my own personal relationship with God or with Jesus, and I pray and like maybe I go to church, but it's all about the sort of like direct connection with God. Jesus, if you're Christian, like Jesus paid for my sins and that happened like for me personally, right? Or there's sort of like the more liberal, progressive, radical version of faith, which I was definitely a part of / still am in some ways, version where it's like confront the empire, like march into Jerusalem, like the kingdom of God on earth as in heaven, give us all enough to eat, healthcare, like we have to like do the things. And like what I've come around to is like, it's actually like a yes and, right? That like confronting the powers that be is like hard, exhausting work. And so having quiet moments like by yourself, perhaps to pray, to rest, like that's also important. To have rituals of like resistance and resilience, like communion, of sort of like remembering like a unified body. Like these all sort of like remind us of our values, connect us to our community, give us sort of like a moment of to catch our breath, to like then go back out and change the world. And so it feels like a yes, and you don't like stare down Rome without taking a moment by yourself on the top on the mountainside to pray, and whatever like prayer looks like for you, right? It could be playing tarot cards or like having sex with your friend or whatever it might be, but like that there's like something there about this sort of like turning inward and reconnecting to the things that are important to you, and then going out and changing the world.
Yeah, it makes me think of Richard Rohr's Center for Action and Contemplation, like having both together, like they inform each other, they enable each other. Yeah, it's real. If you lean only on one or the other, they get kind of weird.
And this moment in the story of like seeing, the story could have been told as Jesus just keeps on like having these public confrontations and smackdowns. Instead, it includes these moments of like tapping into source, being brutally honest about it, and while his friends nap. It occurred to me just in the reading of this one this time that like he spent there's such a refrain over dinner of like, one of your pals here is going to betray me. And they do so much chest thumping bravado. Not me, not me, not me. And like, if this person that's been so inspiring to me for a few years and I'm close with says that like, there's going to be a betrayal happening tonight, I would want to be vigilant and stay awake. Like, it's not just like, hey, I'm stressed. Could you guys stay awake while I'm stressed too? Could you pray with me? I'm thinking just that sense of like, how serious are they taking him? Or did they just get like really drunk and pass out? I
mean, they did have a lot of wine.
They
always said he had some mighty fine wine.
The storyteller in me wonders, like, I mean, there weren't news cameras. Like, who, like, it seems like Jesus was arrested, right, and crucified by the Roman government, right? Like, and also, like, all these details, like, I'm like, a lot of times the details, right, like for the birth narratives, for instance, right, in Matthew and Luke, like, wildly different, completely incompatible. They're like just like did not happen, right? They're completely made up whole cloth, right? Like obvious, like, I mean, they must be. Like, I don't think it's a controversial thing to say. I mean, it is to someone, but but like, so then like the details do matter insofar as like service to the larger point that the storyteller is trying to make. And so in moments like this, it's sort of like, well, I don't know, like maybe they fell asleep, maybe they didn't fall asleep, like maybe they weren't even there. Like they're kind of characters in this part of the story. And so like, what is the, like, what function do they serve as this community is telling and retelling this story? It's like the question that sort of like comes up for me.
Let's have one final reading here, verses 47 through 56. It's been 2 times Jesus has said, please, I don't want to have to do this, but I'll go down this path if it's yours. And then in comes old Judah.
While he was still speaking significantly, Judah, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large group with short swords and clubs, who were from the lead priests and the elders of the people. The one handing him over had prepared a signal with them, saying, "He is the one I kiss." He immediately went up to Jesus and said, "Hello, Rabbi," and he kissed him repeatedly. "My friend," Jesus said to him, "do what you're here to do." Then they went up and grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of the people with Jesus reached out, drawing his short sword and striking a man enslaved to the high priest, severing his ear. "Put your sword away where it goes," Jesus told him. "Everyone who picks up the sword will be destroyed by the sword. Or don't you think I can call on my Father and that he would send me more than 12 legions of messengers right now? But then, how would the scriptures showing it's necessary for it to happen this way be carried out?" Right then, Jesus said to the squad, "Why did you come out with swords and clubs to capture me as if I were an insurrectionist? For days I've been sitting in the sacred grounds teaching, and you didn't arrest me. But this whole thing happened so that the writings of the prophets would be lived out." Then all the students abandoned him and ran away. The word of the Lord.
Point to run away at.
I think they're just like, wait, he's not going to fight back? He's just going to let this happen? I'm out.
Yeah, that's not where I thought this was headed.
Yeah.
I mean, that opening scene, I don't know how it is that it's remarkable how much a flannel graph can imprint itself, or how much some passion play can do it. But I'd always imagined it how the fourth gospel tells it, which is it's some Roman soldiers who are there to arrest Jesus. All 3 synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, tell the story as some dudes with swords and clubs sent by the high priest or the religious leaders. They don't mention the Romans. So this idea that it was Rome who came and did it, well, there's a faithfulness to how you tell the story both ways, like we're saying, apart from what historically happened. But the way the story is being told here, this is like if the elder board or the lead pastor sicked the congregation out, or like got, those boys to go out and deal with that problem person. This is a lynch mob. This is an extrajudicial arrest. This is not the stormtroopers showing up in this telling. And it's to me, that's a more frightening scene. Like, these are citizens. These aren't just these dickhead Romans, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like operating outside the law kind of thing. Yeah. Vigilante justice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like I'm like, I don't know, beating the same drum over and over again, right? Like that at this point, right, the Jewish movement, the Jesus movement is like becoming distinct from the Jewish movement from which it originated. Jesus died, he's resurrected, and whatever that means to them and to you, it's still fledgling, it's still under Roman control. And so, like, I think there's a little bit of like, and I think this gets a running theme, right, that you see throughout, especially the Gospels, right, is sort of like, we're like not like those like angsty Jews, like don't worry, like we're mad at the Jews. That just feels sort of like a little bit ahistorical, right? That like the Jews like weren't. The Jews like didn't crucify Jesus, right? They like had absolutely no authority to do that. And it's not like, oh, they had no authority to do it and they did it anyways, in the way that like your average like white Southerner like didn't or Northerner like didn't have the actual authority to lynch Black people, and yet they still did it, right? Like it was, if Jesus was put on a cross, like definitely the Romans put him there. And so it just feels like important to like pay attention to and like name that is sort of like swirling around here. Like as much as this, however the stories tell it, and for whatever reason their stories are for telling it that way, like the Jews were also like under Roman occupation, and they were absolutely not putting people up on crosses on the side of the road without like without the Romans being behind it. And so like, yeah, it just like, especially, yeah, that just feels like an important thing to like continue to underline. And I think, right, that like and I used to be like this, right? Like the Pharisees in the Gospels, like can serve as like really tempting rhetorical figure as like the bad guys. And especially for progressive Christians, right? It's like, those conservative Christians, like they're the real Pharisees, right? Like they're XYZ bad thing. And it's like, there was multiple, so there at the time of Jesus, right, there's like the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes, the Zealots, there's like the Jesus movement that we know about, right? There's like lots of different fractured ways of understanding what it meant to be Jewish, what it meant to be living under Roman occupation, how to live that out, what to do with the temple, like what not to do with the temple. And so like a lot of these at the actual time of Jesus, not when they were in down, were like very much like intra-communal conversations, such that we see amongst like liberals and leftists and progressive Christians and radical Christians and queers and gay people who just want to assimilate. Like we can see that dynamic playing out now. And like with 2,000 years of Christian hegemony and violent, like anti-Semitic violence, it plays out very differently. We like read back into it a lot of like meaning and dynamics that like weren't necessarily there. And then when you add in the additional layer of the Gospels being recorded like decades after Jesus's death, right? Like we're like well along into this sort of like fracturing and splintering, where the writers like know, they do know what happened next in the story. And so they're also like writing all of that like back into it. And so like, also like whenever someone says like, oh, the conservative Christians are being the Pharisees, and like that we like use it as like to mean a bad thing or the bad guys, like every single Jew on the planet hears that as the Jews are the bad guys, because all the other movements except for the Pharisaic Judaism like died out, didn't go anywhere, and like modern Judaism is like descended directly from like Pharisaic Judaism. And so like there are like, I'm Jewish, like they are good guys, right? And so like there is no Judaism about the Pharisees. And so it's just like feel that like actually like it just feels like, oh my God, like the LGB without the T, right? Like if you can get like the gay people to be mad at the trans people, you like miss the real enemy. If you can get the poor white people to be mad, so like to think that they're above the Black people, you like miss the real enemy. If you can get progressive Christians to think that like the Jews are the problem, like we're missing like white Christian nationalism and fascism, right? And so it just feels like it's really fucking important to be like in tune to the ways that like anti-Semitism is like such a part of the Christian tradition, and it's like so subtle. And like I grew up, my first memory is making latkes. Like my second memory, one of my earliest memories is like making latkes like with friends and in school. Like my best friends have been Jewish my whole entire life, like, and also like layers and layers of like realizing like how deep the anti-Semitism like goes and how subtle it is, and like just it feels like really important just to pay attention to that, and who benefits from us viewing the Pharisees as the bad guys. And they're clearly presented as the bad guys in these stories. Like, I don't want to like, and so like, but then like, what do we, especially Christians, like what do Christians do with that? And like in a time of, especially with the podcast around confronting authoritarianism and fascism, it feels like a real, like, it just is like a case study in dividing movements.
Oof.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I think thanks for really driving that home. Like talking about beating the same drum, but I think it's a drum that never needs to stop beating.
Like Rome did it then, and Trump is doing it now, right? Like we cannot, cannot let it happen again.
Yeah, there's all these dog whistles built into the text and into our ears as we've been trained to hear these texts.
I mean, the number of times I see progressive Christians saying anti-Semitic things that they don't, and I know their hearts that they like don't realize, they like absolutely don't mean it. You just have to like. And so then also to have like some grace, like I've had to have some grace. Like, I didn't know that. Like, you're not don't fall back into that sort of like conservative Christian mindset of like, oh, well, if I did a bad thing, I must be a bad person. I must be so horrible. There's something wrong with me. It's like a shame spiral.
Right.
Or
so then you have to deny that you did the bad thing.
Exactly. No, I couldn't possibly have, like, it can be like a yes and like, yes, you like don't want to do that. And also, oh, I didn't realize that one. Okay, well, now you know, like read a book, like, like
having this like non-anxious receptivity to the fact that we're gonna find logic of domination in our hearts. Yeah. It's like, you guys are the ones who are all like harping on like total depravity and shit, but you can't accept the fact that you might be fucking racist, even if you are trying really hard not to be. Like, I still have some white supremacy in me. I'm trying to get it out. Like, that's part of the work. Like, like, I don't even believe in total depravity, but I like we inherit shittiness. And like the work of every sacred path should be to exercise those demons and those like structural biases that our egos and our fear and our bodies get enmeshed with.
I mean, I think like the practice of being able to have someone tell me like, oh, ouch, like that was like kind of transphobic, what you like, I know you didn't mean like that, but like that really, as a trans person, like hurt me, to be like, I definitely didn't mean it. Like, you're my, like, in this case, like my literal best friend. I was like, you're my best friend. Like, but to be like, okay, like, let me just like sit with it for a few days, or like that is sort of like rooted in a logic of white supremacy. To be like, okay, like, and I have all the arguments in my head about why it's not right, but to just sort of like sit with it and be like, they've got some truth and they trusted me enough to say it. And so like, I owe it to myself and to them to sort of really inspect that.
I didn't know that. Thank you is some of the holiest words you can say regularly in life.
And it's like when meditation, right? Like people think about sort of like, oh, it's like it's all about the calm, like, and clearing my mind for 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes or whatever it is. But like actually like the real sort of like power of meditation happens in like the moment where your like mind starts to wander, and then you notice it, and then you like bring yourself back to your breath or to your whatever your point of focus is.
And over.
Right.
And over.
So like the growth, like the actual like the letting your brain slip, you're not doing meditation wrong. That's like how you grow.
That's
and so
works.
like I mean, obviously we like don't want to do the white supremacy or the transphobia or the sexism, right? Like, and also in the moment where like someone catches you in that, like how you respond is like where the growth happens. And like, so you have to like not be afraid of sometimes bumping into a growing edge and figuring out how to course correct when you do eventually hit it. Because the other alternative is to just like only surround yourself with people who look and think and act and are sure identifies identities like you. And then like that just perpetuates injustice in its own way without you ever even realizing it.
Well, I'd bring that full circle to your observation about the way like Pharisees are used as a slur. Like, getting into progressive circles that use that shorthand.
I see it all the time.
All the time. Like they are portrayed as as antagonists in a story. They are not the villains.
Right.
And it must not be used as a slur.
Right. I think part of it is what you were saying, Brian, about like, we know the full story already. But if we're thinking about the context of what's happening in the story. Like you said, the Pharisees are the heroes, the ones that everyone respects. So the reason they're being called out repeatedly isn't because like, oh, obviously they're the bad guys. It's like, challenge your assumption that the people that you respect have it right. Like, think it through, think it critically. What might there be more to consider here?
Yeah. And also, like, at the time, like, Jesus was like one person arguing with Pharisees. Like, Jews argue with it. Like, there's like a comment, like a joke, a quip, right? It's like 2 Jews, 3 opinions, right? Like, we're constantly arguing and questioning authority. Like, that is actually a very Jewish thing to do. And so, like, it's not like they're either all good or all bad, or Jesus had some like unique insight into the ways in which they were like, we're all human, and we're all critiquing them. And Jews also critique the Pharisees and wrestle with Talmud, and like that's why like it all exists, right? You know,
the other thing in this passage is just like the really, really clear, like the nonviolent activism, like stepping up, and how just like now that's a hard pill to swallow. And they're like, oh, I'm out, right? If that's what it takes, if we're not going to like dominate the dominators, if we're not going to fight back and defeat them, what are we even doing? It's better just to like peace out and protect ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that there's like a tension there on like how you define violence and non-violence really shapes like how it gets played out. I like obviously got my activism start in nonviolent direct action, and then maybe like 5 years after that, I read a book called How Nonviolence Favors the State. And I was like, I'm out. And then I've like, and then like more recently, I was like reading some articles about research around sort of like that actually looks at revolutionary change in countries, and sort of like pretty much like any progress that happens like non-violently, and violent revolutions almost always you end up with more authoritarianism afterwards than before. And so like it's kind of like, yes, it's like all true, right? That like people have rights to defend themselves. It's like understandable that people want to have violent expressions. Maybe that's not the way to create the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven that we want it to be. Also, like maybe graffiti on a wall is different than attacking someone. Maybe like throwing stones at someone is different than shooting them. Like, I think that it's like really easy to fall into well, if I'm gonna be like nonviolent, it means I have to condemn everything all the time, and like they shouldn't have broken those windows, and we can't be mean to Trump supporters, and like they're like, we're just like, we need like to be able to hold some nuance around like there are different tactics and degrees, and destruction of property is different than violence against people, and like a slap in anger by one person is like different than an occupying military, right? Like it's all it's like all sort of true and complex, and so like I don't want to fall into a sort of like non-violence apologism of just sort of like, well, we just have to sit by and let it all happen. Right? Because like I can't
it's peacemaking, not passivism. Right?
And that's Jesus passive. Like through and through, right? It's like it's like an active, not like this march into Jerusalem Palm Sunday is a protest march. Like it's super confrontational.
Absolutely.
It's not passive. And like, I don't know, like maybe someone like graffitied the side of the gate in Jerusalem. It doesn't like undermine the movement. You gotta be able to like hold it all in tension.
And trust that there is a generative tension there, which is like such a wonderfully Jewish like way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just imagine ACAB, all centurions are bastards.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, he comes forth with such, like, he doesn't pull punches in these final chapters. Like, there, some people, like, to your points about, like, we need to be nice to certain people and polite and not hurt feelings. It's like, brother was hurting feelings left and right.
Like brood of vipers.
Constantly.
And saying the way you're going is going to get you all killed is a way to piss, especially when you're telling the godly men
Yeah.
and the patriots and the soldiers, that they're all going to kill each other.
Yeah.
Great job. Like,
Yeah.
how to lose friends.
Way to piss off everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone except the working poor. And even then, they got frothed up by the scapegoating vibe.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do feel like sometimes when I see like really hardcore, like accelerationist leftists that are like, we need the revolution. It's like, we will be so fucked. Like, right? Like, who do you think has like the guns, population wise, and also like the Trump administration controls the military right now? Like, oh my God, like the absolute last thing we need right now is an all out war. Like,
that's what they want more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah,
they're ready for
and
it.
Poor people and queer people and like gendered minorities and like people of color like are the first to like face that violence, right? Like,
Yeah,
they're pushing people into the line of fire. They're pushing down people into the line of fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thought about like later in the chapter before we call it for the day, like your point, Brian, about like the Jews did not have the authority to execute people.
Yeah.
Like this is why they're goading him in this trial, right? Because they can't do it until he does something that pisses off Rome. And then they can get Rome involved to do it. Right. And so they have verse 63 here. I order you to tell us under oath by the God who's alive that you are the Messiah, the Son of God. And then you get the, if you say so. Right. Jesus told him, however, I do say this to you, from now on you will see the Son of Humanity sitting at the right hand of power and approaching in the clouds of the heavens. Like, this is not, I mean, perhaps the priest here heard it as a divine statement, but this is absolutely Son of God is a title of Caesar.
Yeah, political for sure.
And so like, oh, we've got it. We got him. He claimed to be Caesar. He's a rival to Caesar. Now he's a political insurrectionist. Call the Romans.
Entrapment.
Yeah. Yep.
This passage in our sort of discussion around like Messiah and Son of God and the politics around that reminds me of a passage that probably happened in an earlier episode that hasn't come out yet, or at the time of this recording, but so I haven't listened to it. But so I don't know if you discussed it. But like, there's this really famous saying of Jesus that's, I think it's in maybe 2 of the Gospels, where it's sort of like, take up your cross, like, and follow me. Which like gets wielded against, I mean, everyone, but like certainly queer people, right? Like, oh, your homosexuality, like your homosexual attractions are just your cross to bear, or like for women in like abusive marriages, like, oh, this is just your cross to bear. And well, it's something that is like voluntarily chosen. So if you're like stuck in a marriage or you happen to be queer, it's like not your cross to bear. But also, what Shannon, my creative partner at queertheology.com, pointed out for me is like that moment happens immediately after Jesus has the transfiguration moment up on the mountaintop, and then like asks like, who do you say that I am? And finally the disciples say, you are the Messiah, like the Son of God. And so he's like, oh, you've now committed treason also, like we're in it.
Right.
Like, I'm
absolutely.
This is not a spiritual metaphor. Like, you're going to have to die for this. Like, if we keep going, like, you're going to die. Like, that's where this ends.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Are you ready? And when he told me that, I was like, holy shit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
amazing.
that is fantastic.
Yeah. We're going to have to go re-record that episode now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, I think that feels like a good one to wrap on. Thank you, everybody.
Get ready to do treason.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. We're inviting everyone. Join in the treason, folks.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for your company for this leg of the journey. Thank you to Brian Murphy for your voice and passion today. The easiest way to support Found in Translation is to leave us a rating or review on whatever app or player you've been enjoying this on, especially YouTube and Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Facebook as Found in Translation. You can read the Liberation and Inclusion translation at www.litbible.net and follow its development on Threads as @lit.bible. You can follow Brandon Johnson on Blue Sky as @litbible.net. You can follow me on Threads or Blue Sky as @BDRhodes. Brian, what's the best way for people to find you?
I'm on all the places as This Is BGM, my initials BGM, This Is BGM, and thisisbgm.com are places you can find me, and then also queertheology.com for the Queer Theology Podcast for my queer theology work.
Is there a book on the shelves by now?
Oh, yeah. Well, so right now, my thank you. My first book, Love Beyond Monogamy, is available for pre-order. Right now, it comes out September 18th. So you can get it now. It's also my birthday in a few days. So it would be a really great early birthday present for me. It's about non-monogamy and spirituality and how those two are like inherently tied, and the wisdom that like monogamous folks can learn from non-monogamous folks about for their own relationships and also for their spirituality. What spiritual people can learn from the wisdom of non-monogamy, how non-monogamous people can sort of like be comforted by spirituality. It's all sort of mixed in together with a heavy emphasis on like queerness and sex and sluttiness. So that's available right now, and pre-orders like really help with especially like new and first-time authors to decide how many books get printed and if bookstores are going to actually put them in their shelves.
Yeah, speaking of feeding algorithms.
Yeah, you really like, so if you're going to buy the book, it would be really great if you could do it now. Anywhere books are sold, like I love local bookstores, so like ask your local bookstore if they would order it for you, and they will. And soon next year, Reading the Bible Through Queer Eyes is coming out with my creative partner, Shannon T.L. Kearns, as the co-author of that. And that's looking at the Bible through a queer lens. And we believe that from Genesis to Revelation, it proclaims good news to LGBTQ people. And so it sort of merges queerness with sacred stories to sort of see what new insights align. And so I don't think it will be available for pre-sale by July, but it might be. But keep your eyes out for Reading the Bible Through Queer Eyes with Harper One.
Awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Everybody, the music you're listening to is by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Found in Translation was produced on unceded Chinook and Kalapuya land. Goodbye, Brandon.
Bye, Brandon.
Bye, Brian. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Brandon. Bye, Brandon.